Good afternoon. My name is Sierra Shessel, and I will be presenting you with some information based on hazardous operations and emergency response. Let's start off with, what is hazardous operations and emergency response? It is an unexpected release of hazardous substance or a substantial threat of a hazardous release. It can pose as a significant threat to the health and safety of the workers. A shorter, more common name for it is HAZWOPER. Why is this HAZWOPER training important to you and your company? We want to educate you and for you to become familiar with protecting human health, welfare, safety, and the environment. Learn about identifying and controlling hazards. We'd like for you to understand how mishandling hazard materials can cause health issues and even death, and to facilitate coordination and communication of safety and health issues among your personnel responsible for the various activities taking place on site. Who needs HAZWOPER training? All employees working on site and exposed to hazardous substances, health hazards, or safety hazards. Also, employees involved in treating, storing, or disposing of any hazardous waste. With this training, you have multiple courses available for you to take. They include a 40-hour, 3-day course, a 24-hour, 1-day course, and for supervisors and managers, you are required to take an additional 8-hour waste management training course. Your certification is only effective for 1 year. After this year, you are responsible for keeping your certification up to date by taking the 8-hour refresher course. The following are HAZWOPER standards that cover 5 distinct categories of work operations. They include cleanup operations required by a governmental body involving hazardous substances conducted at an uncontrolled hazardous waste site, corrective actions involving cleanup operations at Resource Conservation Recovery Act covered sites, operations involving hazardous waste at treatment, storage, or disposal facilities, operations that generate hazardous waste but are not treatment, storage, or disposal facilities, and emergent response operations involving releases of hazardous substances. Why we need this training? HAZWOPER has always been a training available for anyone to take, not until the tragedy of Deepwater Horizon. The training and recovery plans that were in place at the time were not ready for the magnitude of Deepwater Horizon. Therefore, that is why we now have more training and necessary steps to take in preventing such a tragedy. Spending the necessary dollars to provide training for your employees and staff can prevent harm to our environment, employees, and society. Step 1 is in educating the proper personnel and becoming familiar with protecting the human health, welfare, safety, and the environment. In doing that, effective preparation is essential to conducting organized and thorough response operations in an emergency. Preparation before a potential hazard substance release is critical to ensuring that employers and workers have the proper equipment, know where to go, and know how to stay safe and healthy in the event of an actual emergency. There are multiple ways to go about identifying the controlling hazards. The diagram to the left shows questions and responses to help identify, remove, and control a hazard. If for some reason your hazard does not fall in any of these scenarios, it is imperative that you add this new hazard to your training outline and communicate it to your employees. When identifying hazards, always keep your eyes moving, know your surroundings, and pay attention to machinery, making sure all lights and reflectors are in plain sight and working. Chemicals. Be sure chemicals are stored away in necessary containers or rooms to prevent any chemical reactions. Traffic. Making sure cones and hazardous lights are on and working. Spills. Keeping spills contained, whether on land or offshore, are imperative to the environment. Noise. Be aware of any hissing or bubbling sounds coming from valves or chemicals that may be reacting to one another. Sparks. Any sparks next to chemicals can cause a fire or explosion. Make sure areas are taped off, allowing personnel to know there is a hazard. Your company should have a material management program to help educate employees and alleviate any future problems. Understanding how mishandling hazard materials can cause issues and even death. There are 5 consequences of hazard materials mishandling. The first one being disorganization. Every relevant employee should have a specific role in your company's hazardous material management program. There should be a training coordinator, as well as workers who specifically handle, transport, and dispose of the hazardous waste. Environmental hazards. Companies are obligated to consider the environmental effects from a hazardous substance release. Toxic waste harms animals, humans, and environment every day. Although there are regulations for hazardous materials, contamination still happens. Because of the toxins in the air and water, contamination and pollution are linked to respiratory conditions such as asthma, as well as other diseases. Failing to inform your employees hurts your company's reputation as you become a threat to the people and the wildlife in your local community. Failed inspections. National organizations such as the DOT, EPA, and OSHA work hard to respond to chemical and toxic substance exposure, thereby protecting our communities from hazardous substances. Laws will change over time, so be sure to stay on top of them and relay any updates to your employees. The 4th consequence is injured employees. Whether it's improperly storing hazardous materials or forgoing a step or 2 related to personal cleanliness after handling unsafe substances, there are shortcuts that may tempt your employees to put their safety on the line. In the event that workers do manage materials incorrectly, they need to know how to manage the spills on their bodies or care for the chemical splashes in their eyes. Even if employees receive the proper training, an accident can still occur at any time. Your workers need to make fast decisions and handle them appropriately. When it comes to potential dangerous materials, employees must be proactive and take extra care while they handle them. The final consequence is unnecessary expenses. If you violate disposal laws and fail inspections, you'll receive large civil penalties. In fact, while these fines vary depending on the state in which your company operates, they can come to tens of thousands of dollars, as the penalty rates have increased over the years. In 2008, DOT, EPA, and RCRA doubled their fines to prevent financial penalties. You should have hazardous material protocols and training programs in place. Employees need a plan that they can follow in order to handle materials in ways that comply with state and federal regulations. Make sure you know how hazardous substances are present in your workplace and understand how to properly handle them. Your workplace material safety data sheet will tell you what types of hazardous materials are present and provide information for their safe handling and disposal. Never try to clean up large hazardous material discharges yourself. Special training and equipment can be required depending upon the material. Facilitate coordination and communication of safety and health issues among personnel responsible for various activities taking place on the site. Material safety data sheets are a great way to communicate with your employees and upper management, keeping everyone aware of the substances on hand. It is imperative to always keep a line of communication of unsafe working conditions, hazardous materials, toxic materials, disease or illness, or any combination. Making sure your team is qualified and trained will help your job run smoother, relying on these employees to be knowledgeable if any hazard occurs will give you a peace of mind.